CALPADS Error Resolution SWDS0621 Missing Enrollment Record for Eligible and Participating Special Education Student. We always recommend that you consult the CALPADS error list when you begin troubleshooting any error. So here we have a screenshot of the CALPADS error list, and you can see from left to right we have the error number and the error name. These two fields are used for reference. This information is given to you in CALPADS so that you can reference the CALPADS error list or the CALPADS user manual's troubleshooting section. Then we have the error description, fields validated, and suggested resolution. These three columns are used to decipher the reason why the error is triggering, and suggested resolutions are provided towards correction. So the error description says students must be enrolled when they become eligible and participating in special education. Under the fields validated, you see there's SENR data, and then there's students with disabilities data, or the students with disability status data, and then we have suggested resolution. So we have understanding the error at the top. A student cannot be considered eligible and participating unless they are enrolled. Suggested resolution ensure that the enrollment start date is on or prior to the special education status effective date, if that status is 1, eligible and participating. So it's pretty clear when reading the error list that any student with the eligible and participating status has to have an enrollment record with a start date on or before that status date. In addition to the CALPADS error list, other resources may be helpful when troubleshooting errors. So for special education data, the special education file submission scenarios often tell you what files are required and detail which records must be submitted for this scenario. We can see here that initial Part B evaluations is the category. The scenario is a student is initially evaluated for Part B and was found ineligible. You can see in the center, there's the SWD status. It tells you what status to select and a non-participation reason. It will tell you that the MEET record should be submitted to show initial evaluation for Part B. Plan review, no, because the student was found ineligible, so no plan review occurred. And then it has the evaluation outcome. These are key details in the MEET file. And you can also see that it has the plan and the SERV file, the service file. These records should not be submitted. And so this is available as long as you scroll through the scenarios and find the scenario that best describes your situation. The CALPADS FAQ is also a great resource for special education. You can see here, highlighted at the top, what information is submitted in the Students with Disability Status file. Understanding what information submitted will help you submit the correct status. You can see all the statuses are listed: eligible and participating, eligible and not participating, eligible and not enrolled, not eligible for special education services. Then there's further FAQ questions. When does CALPADS expect status 1? When does CALPADS expect status 2? And then at the very bottom, you can see when does CALPADS expect status 3 and status 4. So this is a great resource that will help you with any special education problem. There is also the CALPADS file specifications. Understanding what CALPADS is expecting helps us troubleshoot errors. And so here we have an excerpt of the Students with Disability Status, the Special Education Status date. Under comments, you can see information about the status date. The status date for students who are being initially evaluated would be the date of the determination. The status date for students whose status is changing would be the date the student's status changed. Then there's descriptions for students transferring from outside of California. Under validations, you can see must be greater than or equal to the initial entry start date when special education status comes 1, eligible and participating. So what are the possible causes for SWDS0621 error? A student with disability has an incorrect eligible and participating status. A student may be ineligible and has the status of eligible and participating, or an eligible student should have a non-participation reason code. So the student's eligible and not participating. Another problem may be the students with disability has the enrollment record missing, or the student with disability status predates the enrollment. So remember that students with the eligible and participating status That status date has to be on or after the enrollment for the student. Now, let's look at a demo of the SWDS0621 error. So we're looking at the SWDS0621E4 error, missing enrollment for eligible and participating special education student. We have one such error. It's listed down here. As always, we can click the error code, which will open the troubleshooting section in the CALPADS user manual. We're going to use this as reference, right? So the screen pointed us to this error. The description says students must be enrolled when they become eligible and participating in special education. So when they have a status of eligible and participating, the expectation is the student will be enrolled as of that date. So we're going to validate the student enrollment data. Notice the student enrollment start date and exit date are used in the validation, as well as the special education status effective start date, as well as the special education status code. That would be eligible and participating. And then further information is given under understanding the error. A student cannot be considered eligible and participating unless they are enrolled. Ensure the SENR enrollment start date is prior to the special education status effective date and the special education status code field, eligible and participating. All right, so that's a lot of talk. Let's get into it. Back on the data discrepancy screen in CALPADS, if we right click the SSID, I can open up the tab for the student details. Here's the student's record. We can see the student was enrolled last year in the 23-24 academic year from 8/7/23, 5/30/24. And then when we come down and look at the status, the student has an eligible and participating status as of 7/10/2024 at Palmdale Aerospace Academy. So let's go back up, look at our enrollment record. The enrollment at Palmdale Aerospace Academy ended prior to 7/10/24. It ended on 5/30/2024. So that's why the error is triggering. There is no enrollment on 7/10/24 as CALPADS expects. And so this doesn't jive. So we'll look at the other records for more investigation, right? It'll tell the story. So we have a special education meeting on 7/10/24. The meeting activity evaluation code is a 10. That's an initial evaluation for Part B. And so the student was first being determined eligible, and it was determined that the student was eligible. However, the services most likely would have started at the start of the 24-25 academic year, but the student attended another LEA. Hindsight being 2020, to resolve this error, you would change this status, right? This 10/21/22 status is fine. The student was evaluated and determined not eligible. The 7/10/24 status, we have an eligible and participating student. Well, the student never participated. So you want to change this status to eligible and not participating. And then you need a non-participation reason code. Not just using the error list, but the CFS and the CALPADS close helps when you're troubleshooting errors. And so you can pull up all the different non-participation reasons and look at them using the CALPADS code set, filtered for just special education non-participation reasons, but the code set has every code in CALPADS. And 12 looks most appropriate. Eligible, no education plan currently, future plan expected. At the time this record was submitted, when this student was evaluated last summer, the expectation was the student was going to continue with the enrollment in the fall and services would begin with the enrollment. Student went to a different school. The record was never updated in CALPADS. And you can see that in the definition, the student was determined to be eligible after initial evaluation and parent consent for initial provision of special education services. So we do see that initial evaluation record. However, the student will have no IEP or IFSP or ISP in place at this time. For example, the student will begin services on a later date, e.g. the first day of school in the new academic year. That's almost exactly what this scenario was, and so we know that will resolve the issue. We can see that looking at the record, they submitted a plan. Well, the student was never enrolled to receive services and be served on that active plan. So this record should be deleted, as well as these two service records, right? These associated service records, you can see the plan effective start date is 7/10, same as the plan date. These three records, the two service records and the plan, should be deleted. The meeting record can remain. We want to report the meeting. All you need when you submit a meeting record is a status. However, the status should be eligible, not participating, with the non-participation reason for this scenario. And that should resolve this version of the SWDS 0621 error. Good luck with your submissions and troubleshooting moving forward.